join me. Please join me, the Honorable Commissioner for Education, for the opening remark.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Hello, I'm on. Hello, good afternoon.
Okay, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Good afternoon.
Okay, ma'am.
Hello.
Please join me as we welcome. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Mrs. Abose de Adelaja. You are most welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Our dear facilitators and our wonderful participants, my director, and the crew and child guardians. Good afternoon to every one of you.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello, do you want me to speak now?
Yes, ma'am. Go on, ma'am.
All right, so today is another remarkable day. We thank God for the first phase of the webinar that we started last week, and it's going to be concluded today. First and foremost, let me express my appreciation to Checheyara for being there for us. The training has exposed many, I want to believe, so many things that is happening and how to go about the issue of child molestation, child abuse, and related cases. Today is not going to be different. I'm sure Checheyara, they have got to repackage themselves and are going to dish out even more than they did the previous time for us today. So I want to plead with all of us to be online throughout the program, make maximum use of the opportunity we have today, and to make sure we equip ourselves in readiness to resumption. One thing I want to assure is that we are not going to meet our students and pupils the way they left us. So many new cases, developments, and so we must be prepared to be there for them. Knowing that when these children are in school, we are the parents. And so we have responsibility as secondary parents to make sure that we are there for them and we assist them to the best of our knowledge, ability, to make sure that these children settle back to learning. It's going to be a challenging task for us, but I trust the caliber of teachers we have in Lagos State. I know we are up and doing, and we will be able to handle the situation. So on that note, I welcome you to a special session today on the area of reporting. When you discover cases, how do you go about it? I want to believe by the time we are done today, we will be better off and we will help these children. Their life is in our hands, and God will help us to mold their lives the way it is expected. On that note, I thank the facilitator, Checheyara, and the participants too. And I wish everyone a wonderful time. Happy listening. Ìgbéga ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó, àjùmọ̀ṣe ni. God bless you all. I'm done. Please, hello.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Please, there is an observation that happened at the last webinar. Tell all the participants to change their name on the phone from the phone to their own personal name. The participants should not be saying Techno Kinikon, iPhone Kinikon. You should read their name so that we'll be able to identify the participants. It's very important. So please tell all the participants, and I believe they are hearing me. If you don't know, put them to change the phone name to their name. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma, for that wonderful opening remarks. That was the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Mrs. Abosede Adelaja. We thank you so much, ma, for taking the time to join us.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome, ma.
Thank you.
So please, participants, kindly let us have your names. Change from the name of your phone to your real names, please, so that we don't want to have iPhone and all that. We want your real names to appear. Thank you so much. Without wasting time, the topic for today is teachers, their role as mandatory reporters. Teachers, their role as mandatory reporters. That is our topic for today. And our first facilitator is Grace Ketefe. Let me just give the profile of the first facilitator.
To interrupt, BC will be the first. Hello, BC will be the first facilitator.
Okay. Our first facilitator is BC Ajayi Kayode. BC Ajayi Kayode is the Assistant Director of the Sheshe Yara Foundation, a lawyer by profession, having acquired her LLB and LLM from the University of Lagos. She leads the foundation's legal advocacy and support programs to serve the needs of children, non-offending family members, and child protection professionals. She ensures that survivors of child sexual abuse have easy access to justice. Previously worked with the Security, Justice, and Growth Program of the British Council, where she coordinated the Awaiting Trial Persons Project as a consultant with the State Accountability Voice Initiative, SAVI, of DFID, the Community Policing Project of the British Council, and the Safer Schools Initiative Program of the British Council. BC Ajayi Kayode is an alumnus of the prestigious U.S. International Visitors Leadership Program on NGOs and civic activism. BC has participated in both local and international trainings on child protection, including the Audit Awareness Program on Child Sexual Abuse, organized by Darkness to Light in New York. Mediation as a form of restorative justice training, organized by the Lagos State Ministry of Justice, Restorative Pilot Project, and using social norms, change to end violence against children, VAC, in Nigeria, organized by UNICEF. Please join me as we welcome BC Ajayi Kayode, our first facilitator for today.
Wow. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm happy to be with you again. I can never get tired of being with teachers because I came into this world through the womb of a professional teacher. So I'm very, very happy to be with you. The first segment will be taking you through an overview of the Lagos State Safeguarding and Child Protection Policy. The Lagos State Safeguarding and Child Protection Policy, which came, the executive order of this policy was signed in under the administration of former Governor Akinwumi Ambode, the Lagos State Child Protection and Safeguarding Policy. Now, what are the objectives of this policy? What is it aimed at? The objective of this policy is for it to serve as a catalyst for awareness and commitment of all parties to child protection. When we are saying all parties, we are talking about schools, school-related institutions like religious bodies, churches and mosques, community organizations, agencies. So far any child is within the vicinity of that organization, this policy applies. And this policy is also to give a clear direction for handling disclosures to child abuse, and to get a commitment from all adults, because at the in line with the Lagos State Government order, the Cheshire Foundation, we believe it's the responsibility of adults to protect children. And how do you prevent child abuse? How do you respond to it under this policy? You have to engage the best practices of child protection. And what do you mean by the best practices? Where does it apply? How do you handle disclosures? How do you handle referrals, confidentiality, getting professional service response? Now, why so much force on this? Why did the government go to promulgate this policy? Why must there be strict adherence to this policy? I want to tell you the legislative framework, the legal framework. It originated from the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which Nigeria ratified in 1989. So these are the laws that apply, which now gave birth to the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. So from an international level to a continental level. It now escalated to the national level, where we have the promulgation of the Child Rights Act in 2003. And by 2007, we had the Child Rights Law of Lagos State, which was reviewed and amended in 2015. We also have the Prevention Against Domestic Violence Law, which also stipulates for protection of children, 2007, the Criminal Law of Lagos State, 2011, the Family Court of Lagos State Civil Procedure Rules, 2012, and the Lagos State Sex Offenders Monitoring Program and Mandatory Reporting. So you can see a multi-dimensional legal framework, all geared towards one single and same purpose, which is child protection. And the total summary of this legal framework is the best interest of the child. Children have suffered a lot, and this policy is geared towards protecting them. Because oftentimes when there is child abuse, most people don't know how to respond professionally, how to respond responsibly. Oftentimes they sacrifice the reputation of the perpetrator and sacrifice the best interest of the child for the reputation of the perpetrator, or the reputation of the school, the reputation of the community, the reputation of the religious organization. They say, how can it be handled? It will spoil the name of the family, in quote. It will give the school a bad name. Let us bury this case. No, that is why this policy is there. That is why this policy is there, to actualize the best interest of the child in preventing child abuse or in responding to it where it has occurred. Now, what are the highlights? What are the highlights of this policy? What are the main targets of this policy? The scope. The scope. We will see that in the next slide. The scope of the highlights of the child safeguarding and protection policy. It applies to all schools and child-related institutions. In our schools, please, let us note. From the moment the child, like we said the last time, is dropped at the gate of your school, whatever happens to that child from the time the child leaves your school environment is the sole responsibility of the school. We are all teachers, we are all educators. There is more to what the policy expects from us, apart from giving them the children in our schools academic training, child protection, because a child that is not well protected cannot do well academically. I mean, child abuse makes a mockery of the efforts of educators. All that we are doing, teaching the child, preparing the child of exam, it's just like you're wearing a white lace, a white material, and there's a stain of palm oil on that white material. When you go out, people are not seeing you as wearing a white material. They are seeing you as wearing a stained garment. That is the damage child abuse does to the efforts of educators, and we are here to ensure that it is reduced to a minimum. It is mandatory for all child-centered institutions to have a child protection policy in their environment. You must have a child protection policy, a document in black and white. It is not a norm, like we have a tradition, okay, you must kneel down to greet the elders. No, there must be a document with a code of conduct signed by teachers and non-teaching staff. Any adult that comes into your school premises must be aware of this policy, and it is mandatory that you must have a safeguarding child protection officer in the school. Don't just have the document there like another piece of paper, like another case file. Who is the designated official to make sure that the Lagos State government and child protection policy is being effectively implemented in the school? Is this SCPO, Safeguarding Child Protection Officer, that will be held accountable for that. And one of the highlights of the policy is that there must be a safe recruitment process of personnel to safeguard children. When recruiting teachers into the school, when transferring teachers, or when bringing artisans to the school environment, maybe to repair the roof, to repair the building, you must let them know that there's a child protection policy in place to enforce the rights of children. Children have rights. Anybody coming within the 4 walls of your school, either to teach or to do one thing or the other, even the parents, they must know that we are on our toes to ensure the safety and the rights of these children. And then there must be a stipulated reporting protocol. With our child protection policies in our schools, should not be a dog that can bark but cannot bite. In our homes, when we have dogs, we expect that when thieves or marauders come in, the dog should not only bark to alert us that a stranger is around, but should also bite the thief. So it must be an effective policy, a reporting policy. What is the reporting protocol? Not just known amongst all the educators, the children must know that, okay, if I have a problem, there should be a designated room where I can meet the child protection officer to express my fears, to express my concerns, and with the assurance that to be treated in utmost confidentiality. I don't have to look at my back, oh, will they expose my secret? Will they believe me? There must be a reporting protocol. That will first of all report to my class teacher. If she doesn't take me to the child protection officer immediately, this and that must be done. This and then it must be documented. And please, this policy is not a toothless bulldog. There are criminal and civil sanctions for failure to adhere to the policy. There's a saying that goes like this, and there's no hiding place from the goldfish. Ignorance of the law is no defense. Once you are an educator in that school and there's a child protection policy, you have the responsibility to familiarize yourself with it under the tutelage of the child protection officer. It's not a matter of, oh, I'm not the class teacher, I'm not the child protection officer. It is your responsibility to find it out. The way we monitor our students, when we give them assignments, when we give them homework to do, you look at it. Why didn't you do your assignment? You did it on Monday, you didn't do it on Tuesday. So also we must know what the child protection policy in our school entails. Now, what are the responsibilities? This is what we are going to say there. Who is a safeguarding child protection officer? What are the qualities? What are the training skills? A child protection officer must be a designated senior member of staff, somebody in authority who can command the obedience of other members of staff. With due respect, you don't make it doesn't have to be a junior member of staff, but somebody who is professionally trained. Like you can have a social worker or a teacher who has undergone child-focused, trauma-informed training, who is familiar with the dynamics of child development, who is familiar with the dynamics of child sexual abuse, who knows the nitty-gritty of the stages of child development. The way you relate to a 2-year-old is not the way you relate to a 7-year-old. And the child protection officer has the responsibility of raising awareness. Once there's a new member of staff, let them know there is a child protection policy in place. There are new students in school, let the parents know during PTA meetings or other social activity program of the school. Maybe they are going out on excursion. You let the bus driver know that this is our child protection policy. Apart from bringing back the children and safely, don't do things that will endanger, that will violate their innocence. I was so happy one day when a school proprietress told me that she was going to sack the school bus she was going to sack the school bus driver. So I said, why? She said the school bus driver was always playing erotic music in the school bus. And when the children come, they start dancing, all these sexy moves, speaking vulgar language. I was so happy with that school proprietor. That shows that she's aware of her responsibility of raising awareness and on disseminating information on child protection policy. And also, it's the duty of the protection officer to promote a safe environment for school children. For example, the physical environment. If the school gate is locked, the walls, the fences, are they low enough for anybody to jump in and kidnap a child, rape a child? Or the school field is so wide that the sports teacher cannot see what is going on? Or the school toilet, you have both male and female toilets, or the children can do rubbish without anybody knowing, without anybody discerning? Or is there any in the high tea room? Is there parental control, parental guidance so that these children will not stumble on pornography? That is the responsibility of the DSO, and he must make sure that the rights of the children are always enforced. Then the DSO, the child protection officer, is the focal person for putting together the referral directory to be disseminated. There must be documentation, not just oral reports. The directory, for example, this happened to this child, so that even when you are not there, you get transferred, you are retired. This is what happened. You document the reports, and it must be anonymized. So you can give them code name. For example, at the Chichiyara Foundation, we don't even keep hard copies of cases that are reported to us. We do e-copies, and we give each child a code name. So even if you think you can hack into our computer, you don't know who we are talking about. The referral directory. Okay, this report was given to Ministry of Youth, Ministry of Health. This child was taken to Mirabel, blah, 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 blah. Then there must be a directory of child protection agencies around you in your school. For example, if your school is like in Iwaya Sabo area, okay, this is the hospital we took the child to. This is the hospital we are in collaboration with for health matters. The psychologist did this, the structural counseling sessions. There must be a referral directory to be disseminated among the staff with a strict code of confidentiality. It's not a topic for discussion at the staff room where other children will hear. And then collation and maintenance of data on child abuse cases and submission of the e-copy and hard copies quarterly report to the Child Protection Unit of the Ministry of Youth. There must be adequate and regular collation of data, which must be reviewed. Every month, how many cases did you review? You now wonder, with our child protection policy in place, how come we're still having cases like this? Then you can sit together with the school principal. Okay, these are cases happening at home. But since we started implementing this child protection policy effectively, there has been a drop in the incidence of child sexual abuse, physical abuse in our schools. We don't have that anymore. We've done safeguarding this, the school security.
Èmi ò gbọ́ nǹkan tó ń sọ mọ́. Take your bag to where you are.
Yes. Now we're going to go to the next slide. Sorry about the. We are going to go to the next slide on the other responsibilities of the child protection officer. Now, the child protection officer needs to coordinate a system response on child protection issues. For example, if you are the child protection officer for both the junior secondary school and the senior secondary school, ensure that what obtains in the junior secondary school also obtains in the higher secondary school. And audit of child protection practices. For example, if the child protection policy is reviewed, then you take it upon yourself to intimidate the school and the school officials and to ensure that this is in place and forward the report to the Ministry of Youth. And then provide support and advice to staff regarding child abuse, especially when there is need for urgent interventions. You have to be there for these children. You just have to for them, even if the child protection officer is not there. So it's the duty of the child protection officer to ensure that things are in, even if something happens Friday evening, not there. What happens over the weekend of the child protection officer? Not there. What happens over the weekend of the child? The system-wide response must be such that what in the local government area, what is expected from the Lagos State Ministry of Education is what you are replicating in your school. Please, let's not institute our own program. We may have wonderful ideas. For example, we see some teachers, when something happens, maybe they want to interview the child, they want to take the child to some clinics that their reports may not be acceptable in court to institute a case. Please, let us work within the scope of our duties, work within the regulation of the child protection policy. The advice for staff and non-teaching staff is the sole responsibility of the child protection officer. Now, let us look at safety issues. The next slide on safe recruitment for all staff who work with children. Child protection must be integrated into the induction program of newly recruited staff. Please and please, before you take in anybody, and like we've always been reiterating, let them know the dynamics of child protection, what is expected of them. Let them know how to comport themselves with these children so that they will not be incriminated. In as much as we are not holding cases for perpetrators, we know at times some families can be mischievous, inciting children. Maybe they want to blackmail the school, they want to bring a particular teacher into disrepute. What is the code of conduct? What is the operational moves? Where you say you are cleaning the toilet and the children are there, maybe they are not well dressed, say, oh, this person did this to me. And nobody is there to prove otherwise. So you let them know before you, as a cleaner, before you go inside and clean the toilet, tell all the children to come out. You stand by the door so that nobody will accuse you of what you did not do. The next thing we want to talk about on this issue of the child protection policy is training. Please and please, there's no end to learning. And I don't even need to say this because I'm in the midst of educators. There must be regular training on the best practices of child protection issues. The law keeps changing, evolving. Our norms and practices keep evolving, and they will keep evolving because these pedophiles that molest children, they change their tactics every now and then. Years ago, it was a case of penetration with the penis, but now with the upsurge of pornography, they do all sorts. Some even go as far as drugging the child before violating the child. They'll say, "Come and take Zobo," whereas they put tramadol, all these drugs that make medications that make children to be unconscious in it. Some will boil cocaine with Indomie and use it to lure the child. Some will say, "Okay, let me give you a ride in my car." They can put cocaine or all these mad drugs that make a child to put it in the AC, in the air conditioner. The child will breathe it in and sleep up, and they finished what they are doing, what they want to do to the child before the child wakes up. Those are the things we should have at the back of our minds. We do continuous training. We must be at the cutting edge. What are the dynamics? What are the tricks they are using now? And we must step down this training to parents and caregivers. For example, you warn them before you allow your child to run errands for a neighbor. Be careful. It's like HIV/AIDS virus. It's never written on anybody's forehead that this person is a pedophile. So those are the things we need to equip ourselves with. Then professional advice on the dynamics of child abuse and neglect. Let them know that this is not just a crime against the child or the school, but against Lagos State government, professionally speaking. So when people come starting to beg, you're also a mother now, although you're a teacher, let us withdraw this case. Let them know they are accomplices to the offense of child abuse, and please let's not listen to them. Let them know that necessity is laid on you. By virtue of your calling, your profession as an educator, you must ensure child protection. Now, handling disclosures. We did a bit of this the last time as child protection officers, as teachers. Please, let's listen carefully and calmly. Listen carefully and calmly. There's this Yoruba proverb that says, if you say we've not seen this before, or this one has not happened before, you are trying to scare the person that is affected. The same thing applies in child protection. No doubt it can be very overwhelming, because I remember one particular day, I just finished training in a school. A child came to meet me about 13 years, said, "Please advise me. My mother borrowed money from a man to do business. She could not pay. And the man keeps pestering my mother. My mother is begging the man, I don't have money." Then the man looked at me and said, "Madam, you say you don't have anything. Look at this, your 13-year-old girl. Allow me to be sleeping with this, your child, in exchange to cancel the money you are owing me." And I asked her, "What did your mother say?" She said, "My mother is begging me to sleep with the man so that the man will forget about the money he borrowed." It was quite overwhelming, because as a mother, I felt very, very bad that how on earth can such a woman propose this to her child? But I had to put myself in order and question the child normally without pressure. Because if the child sees that you yourself, you're emotionally overwhelmed, he may not tell you the truth. And please, let's not put words into the child's mouth. We've said that. And reassure the child that by telling us, he has done the right thing. And please, let's comport ourselves in such a way that the children that have confided in us, they will not regret confiding in us. And tell them you cannot keep quiet. You have to tell other child-focused agencies. Like we said the last time, you need medicals, you need the police to be involved, you need legal practitioners. And for the first-time disclosures, please note the main points carefully. The main points carefully, because when you are going to be taking the child to all these child protection agencies, medical, social welfare office, hospital, there are some questions they will ask you as the educator. That what and what happened? When did she say it happened? Was it after she left school? Was she still wearing a school uniform? Then open a case file. We've said about documentation, and please put all the specific details, the date, the time, the place, what the child said, and the questions you asked the child, how the child responded. Did she open up immediately to each question, or was she reluctant every now and then to answer the questions? Now we are going to tell you, like we already know, we are educators, the contacts you can readily call. We know you can call us, the Cheche Yara Foundation, on 0800 800 801. But in calling these agencies, record the facts of the case as soon as possible. Your concern about the child, I'll keep reiterating it. If the child needs emergency rescue, especially if it's the parent, the father doing it to the child, if it's a family member, somebody living with them, because you cannot go and confront the perpetrator, or if he's the head of the family, you cannot tell him to pack out that night. You're concerned about the child. Please, like for example, this child cannot stay in this house again. This house cannot live in this environment again. Everybody has known what is happening. She's being stigmatized. She or she is being shamed and being blamed. Then details of what you observe when the child was speaking. Maybe you notice that the child used to be chubby. He has lost weight. Maybe there are marks on the body, rashes on the mouth. Those things that can be pointers to the fact that this is a serial abuse. This is the what has been going on and on, or maybe the kind of language the child is using to show that maybe this child has been exposed to what he or she should not be exposed to. And please, let's be accurate and detailed enough to use the child's words. Don't interpret it. For example, when the child says, "Uncle did something bad to me," please, let's just quote it like that. He did something bad. The child knows what he did was bad. Then what are the details? Was it physical? Was it sexual? Was it emotional? Then note discussions with parents and carers. Maybe if they non-offending family members, note what they say. Their fears. They may say, "Oh, the man is a domestic terrorist. Nobody, people are afraid of him. Even the landlord is afraid of him. The police, they are afraid of him." Note those things, those cogent points that can guide child protection agencies in profiling intervention for the child. Then note the context, what has been done previously, or what other professionals have done. For example, we have cases when the child is about to report, maybe has reported to a teacher or child protection officer in school A, and the father who is messing up the child suspects that this child has told somebody, he may decide to change the school. She gets to the second school, when you see sporadic change, withdrawal of students from schools like that, when the parents are still living in the same house, in the same location, please let us be our guard. And what else has been done? There might be instances in which, okay, they've reported this case to Ministry of Youth and Social Development before, but they took the child away. They didn't allow us to follow up the matter, or DSVRT was called, so and so, what happened? Then say how you interpret the facts, and not any decision, such as information sharing or making referrals. When you are communicating to the school principal, or maybe you have a child protection committee in the school, be very careful how you interpret the facts and profile your strategies. And please, let's use simple language that everybody will understand, the child will understand, the parents will understand. We know as professionals, we all have our different professional languages, what people call professional jargons. But what language is used in the medical profession is different from that of the legal profession. As teachers, let us bring it to the minimum, to the simplest form, so that it will be easy for case management. It will be easy for case management. Now, we've told you about the domestic and sexual violence response team of the Lagos State Ministry of Justice. Fortunately, the office is not too far from Ministry of Education. You can call the Office of Education Quality Assurance, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Youth and Social Development. And of course, we, your partners at the Chechiyara Foundation, we are available 24/7 on 0800 800 801. Thank you for listening, and thank you for adopting the Lagos State Child Protection Policy as your own guiding policy in ensuring child protection. Thank you. Thank you.
Are vulnerable to people who don't have their best interest at heart.
Kò gbọ́. Sẹ́yìn gbọ́.
It is our responsibility as mandatory that any mistreatment is always reported. So thank you once again, ma'am, for that great session. Please, I would like to call on our second facilitator, Grace Ketefe. And before she comes up, let me just go through her profile. Grace Ketefe is the Executive Director of the Sheshe Yara Foundation. She's a leader who passionately believes that child protection is vital to the development of any nation. Her role involves monitoring program activities, supporting the development and implementation of the Foundation's child sexual abuse prevention framework. She's a fellow with PIL-NET's Global Network for Public Interest, New York, and an alumnus of the United States International Visitors Leadership Program, IVLP. She's Darkness to Light Steward, USA, of children and facilitating. She belongs to several networks advocating for the elimination of all forms of violence against women and children. Please join me as we welcome Grace Ketefe.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to appreciate the opportunity to talk to great minds like you once again. Thank you very much for this opportunity. The topic I'm supposed to speak on mandatory roles, what I need to know. Before I start, I want to stand on all existing protocol because I'm not very good with protocol, but I know protocol exists. So I'll start by saying the Honorable Commissioner, the Permanent Secretary, or the directors. I stand on all existing protocol. So we'll go quickly to what we have today. Our roles as mandatory reporting. What do I need to know? So the Lagos State, my colleague has talked about the fact that there's a safeguarding and child protection policy. Subsequently, there is the document that talks about mandatory reporting. What do I need to know? So I'll start by asking this question. Who is a mandated reporter? I want to see your response in the chat. Who is our mandated reporter? The truth is, the Lagos State government required that the following persons are mandatory reporters of any form of abuse, neglect. It is required that once an abuse occurs, by virtue of your position, if you're a school administrator, if you're a counselor, if you're a teacher, if you're a social welfare officer, if you have institutions, child-centered institution, you are a mandated reporter. Any concerned adult too is also a mandated reporter. But under the Lagos State policy, mandated reporters are basically teachers, medical doctors that have access to children. Like I said, any concerned adult, a bystander, or a survivor is a mandated reporter. So under the Lagos State, you are required to report. And so who do we report to? When and how do we report? These are issues that we are going to discuss within the next few minutes. So the first question is, where do I make reports? So you make report when you reasonably suspect that a child is being abused. So from what my colleague said, there are signs, like we said last week, there are signs you need to recognize. Once you see this sign, or once you suspect, or your gut feelings tells you that something is wrong, this child may be abused, then you need to make a report. Especially when a child discloses, a child comes to you and say, this is what is happening to me, then you are required to make sure that you report within the next 72 hours. You are supposed to report to a designated child protection officer within your facility. So you need to report. I am emphasizing it, within 72 hours. As a teacher, you need to report, more especially when you are civil servant. So the Safeguarding and Child Protection Policy goes ahead to say that when you fail, it is an offense. You can be punished for not reporting an abuse within 72 hours. So when a child makes disclosure, make sure you report to your child protection officer within the next 72 hours. And so, why do I make reports? We can ask ourselves, but as teacher, we know we need to make the report. So why do I make reports? Child sexual abuse and other forms of abuse, they are offense under the Child's Right Law and under the criminal law of Lagos State. The impact itself is what you should protect. You don't want the child to be subjected to that abuse. So immediately you suspect, you believe, when the child makes disclosure, make sure you report to the nearest child protection policy and nearest child protection officer within the school environment. So the next question is, why do I make reports? Why do I make reports? We report to the child protection officer in your organization. In your organization. If you don't have it, please go to the head teacher or the school administrator to make sure that you report. You make sure that you report. Even after reporting, you also make sure that you follow up. So sometimes the child protection officer may have forgotten, and you have reported. You need to go back to find out what happened after you report. Not just sit down and say I've reported, but you need to also follow up to say I have reported. What did you do after I report? What are the next steps? What do I need to do? What are the recommendations? Thank you very much. The mandatory reporting rule states that you can also report to the following persons. You can report to the child protection officer within your organization, just like I said. You can also report to domestic and sexual violence response team. You have taken pain, and I know you also have it, to highlight the numbers you can call to ensure that a child is protected. So as mandatory reporters too, if there are cases of concern or abuse that you also need to report that's not happening within the school, and there is a family support unit, a police station that has a family support unit, you can also report. Why we brought this out is because there are times as a teacher, you have family members, you have people within the environment coming to ask for your opinion, to say, this and this happened. What should I do? kindly direct them to the nearest family support unit or ask them to call the DSVLT number. Or you can also tell them, you can report to the Office of the Attorney General of Lagos State, the Commissioner for Justice of Lagos State. We know where it is. It is close to, just like my colleague said, it is close to the Ministry of Education. You go to room 404, block 2, Lagos State Ministry of Justice. So the numbers are also highlighted on the slides. Now, I am going to show you a book which was produced by the DSVLT titled Mandated Reporters Manual. It gives you step-by-step action to take if you have a concern and you need to make a disclosure. At the back of this book, at the back of the Mandatory Reporters Policy, you will see a form there. You will see a form. I know it's not showing, but this is a document. And if you go online, you'll definitely see it. Online with the DSVLT website. It tells you the name, how to report. It's a simple document. So you need not say a lot of stories, just a one-page thing. Just say your concern. You talk about the list of child suspected of being abused. You put the name there, the name of the child, such that the Ministry of Justice can easily identify that child. Not just saying the name and then you're not saying where, how you can identify such a child. You talk about, you say mother's name, the father's name, the children's, the child's address, if you know it, the school, the name of the parent, their phone numbers. Then, and this in the document as well, there are simple form of abuse that have been highlighted that you can just tick. You need not write story because they're concerned. You know this child may be abused. So you're just saying, they can ask you what from sexual abuse, is it sexual abuse? Is it physical abuse? What is it? Is it trafficking that you suspect? Just tick the number. And also, it would also, under this form, you would state your discipline. So for example, it could be, like I said, mandated reporters are not just teachers, medical doctors, paramedics, therapists, counselors, social workers. You tick where you belong. Child protection service provider, tick. So you don't have to say too much story. So it does not discourage you from reporting. Then you put your name. You may decide not to include your name. It's not an issue. If you decide not to put your name, it's not an issue. But put the information such that you'll be able to locate the child and provide the needed help. Once this is properly filled, you then send it to the Office of the Attorney General, Ministry of Justice. All you need to do is just drop. They may or may not contact you, but be rest assured that they are taking the necessary step to ensure that your concerns are being considered, and they are taking the next step to ensure that they provide the needed intervention for that child. Now, you can also report to Lagos State Ministry of Youth and Social Development. And you can also report to us. So under this safeguarding and child protection policy, we also mandated reporters. So once a case is reported to us via our child helpline or via any form, we make sure that we provide the needed intervention. And we do provide monthly report to the Ministry of Youth and Social Development. This is how far we've gone. This is what we did. This is the child we rescued. This is the child that needs to be rescued. So we'll always write to say this child needs to be rescued. And these are steps that we have taken as an organization. These are steps that I've taken as an organization. So the next question I want to ask, that as a mandated reporter, that you should be asking yourself is, am I liable if I make report which turns out to be false? The truth is, if you have a concern, report. So any person who provides report in good faith is immune from liability. So take, for instance, if you report in good faith, You are not doing it just to spite your neighbor, just to spite a teacher, but you are saying the truth. You're concerned. So, for example, if you feel that anytime the child sees a teacher, the child is always shivering. The child is always saying the teacher is looking at me somehow. The teacher has done something for me, and then you report in good faith. And after investigation has been carried out, they find out that the child is not being abused. You will not be held liable, provided you made that report in good faith. And so, good faith is what is important. The way we say it in law, it's better to be very, very conscious, to be over-conscious than to be under-conscious. So, for example, if you felt that the child is not being abused, so I will report. And at the end of the day, investigation is being carried out, and they realize that the child was abused. You could be held liable for it, for not reporting. So it's better to report your concern, more especially if you do it in good faith. So the question we should also be asking ourselves, is there any liability for failure to report? Yes, there's liability. It could be liable. So under the Lagos State Safeguarding and Child Protection Policy, failure to report an abuse willfully may be treated as gross misconduct. I will not, as civil servants, if this is seen as if you are seen as being if you are seen as being as doing this, you'll be seen as being not obeying your superior, not doing the right thing as a civil servant. And not doing the right thing as a civil servant will affect your promotion. You could be demoted, not only affecting your promotion, but you could be demoted, which is why, as teachers, as mandatory reporters, we need to report our concerns. So, for example, let's say after 4 years, after 2 years, you cannot say where you will be, and then they decide to carry out an investigation. The child said, I've been defiled, I have taken steps to report to this teacher, and no action was done, and nothing was done afterwards. And then they did carry out their investigation, and they found out that this child reported, and did not take any step to report. It could, like I said, it could lead to demotion. It could lead to dismissal. So we need to be very, very careful. Once a report is made to us, we need to immediately escalate to the nearest, so I would say the next authority, or to the supervisor, to the school administrator. Make sure you report. Make sure you do your own. Don't say, we have been reporting and nothing has been done. You cannot tell at what time when a detailed investigation will be carried out and the teacher's name is mentioned and that teacher is indicted. So take the necessary step to ensure that at every point in time you report any form of abuse or concern to the child protection officer within your facility. It attracts civil and criminal liability. So a family may decide to say that I have taken steps my child did disclose to you and did not take any step. The person may sue the teacher for negligence. So this is why it is important that we take steps to ensure that we report any abuse. A student may, it's not happening, but we cannot say, but a student may decide in the future to sue this teacher. I told the teacher, I disclosed to the teacher, and nothing was done. So the next slide. And nothing was done to correct, nothing was done by the teacher that I reported to. How can the Chechera Advocacy Center help when I make a report? So if you report to us, but as teachers, you're expected to report to your to the Safeguarding and Child Protection Officer first. So for example, if you have, when you report to us, when a teacher makes a report or when anybody reports to us, this is what we do. We provide legal. If it needs to be documented at the nearest police station, if we need to carry out legal action, we provide legal support. We provide psychosocial support as well. And I'll quickly explain why psychosocial support is very important. The way our child therapist explains this is this. When a child is sexually abused and we fail to provide the needed help, a predator, a pedophile, once a pedophile sees that child, the pedophile, I don't know, just like the way she explained, somebody that smokes hemp, when that person that smokes hemp gets to an environment, you have been staying in that environment for over 20 years, and you don't know where they sell hemp. But when an hemp smoker comes into that environment, it does not take more than 5 hours for him to connect to other people that smokes and sell hemp. So just the same way, when a pedophile gets into an environment, mere seeing a child that has been sexually abused, I don't know, but the pedophile would be able to say this child has been abused before. This child is vulnerable. And so the pedophile will continue to prey on that same child, which is why it is important to provide psychosocial support and counseling such that the child is empowered to react. The child can become more assertive, saying, no, I don't want this. And the child can learn how to report, which is why it's important to provide counseling services for that child. We provide medical support where that child does not have access to medical support. And if necessary, we work with the Ministry of Education to ensure that that child is moved from that offending environment. So where a child feels that everybody in that school knows that I have been defiled, I'm a victim of defilement, Ministry of Education will move that child from that school to another school so that the child can have a fresh start. And so that is what we do. So we liaise with the police, Ministry of Justice, and other child protection agency in order to obtain a speedy trial. Now, the question we ask ourselves is, what are the useful contents that we need to put in our report? We need the child name, we need the address, we need the parent's name, we need the perpetrator's name and address, and the reason for your concern. And the reason for your concern. So we ensure that we do that. What type of abuse should I report? Any type of abuse ranging from sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, exploitation, emotional abuse, and emotional maltreatment. Report if it's an abuse. The last time we had this webinar, we talked about the child's right. Any form of abuse, kindly report to the relevant authority. So I would want to end this session here so that I can allow you to ask questions. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll be looking at the chat. We are looking forward to your question. Question? Okay. I can't hear you.
Hello. There's a question here, ma'am.
Okay.
If a child is raped and the right is violated outside the school premises, can we bring the case to the school management or to the designated child protection officer?
So I feel that the question is, the child was not defiled within the school premises, but a teacher that have access to that child got to know of the information. So I am of the opinion that it should report to the relevant authority. So take, for example, it should report to the child protection officer within the school and also report to I believe you work hand in hand with the Ministry of Youth and Social Development and DSVLT. So report to those three authorities, agencies.
Thank you. There's another question here.
Okay.
One of these officials, probably the person meant that the child protection officer himself or herself, it's possible that the person herself is a child abuser. What could be done in that case?
Okay. So my colleague said when she was talking about safeguarding and child protection policy, that immediately you get to a school, there should be a banner displayed in an advantage position where all the child in that school know who to report to. So we have 2 names. 2 names should be on the banner. You can report to, so for example, in our office, you can report to the assistant director or the child protection officer. 2 names, such that such that you do not have to report to just one person. So if the child protection officer defiles, then there should be an alternative. So we always provide for alternatives. We'll say, yeah, you can speak to BC or you can speak to Grace. So if Grace is the one defiling, they go to BC. And so also they should also learn to meet with their school counselors. So we need to also tell children within the school that if they have concerns that they want to discuss, they can also discuss with their school counselors. So we give them alternative. Because there's this saying that says absolute power corrupts absolutely. So to prevent that from happening, always give alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Another question says, if a child is abused and reported, probably to the child protection officer, and the family of the child is now saying that the matter should not be escalated or treated outside the environment, what can be done?
Okay. So what we do, or what you can do, is this: make sure you write the report. And in the report, if you look at the mandated reporters manual, in the report, you can also add to say, these are the steps we have taken, and the family is saying that we should not take further steps to provide intervention. You report to the Honorable Commissioner for Justice. You drop, they know what to do. So for example, it is, the family could also be added, could also be treated as an offender where you try to pervert justice. So if you have taken the necessary step and the family is rejected, your role is to report to the nearest child protection officer or Ministry of Justice. And once they report, they will take the needed steps. So what you have actually done is to move the problem from your table to the nearest highest authority to say, I have done this as requested of a child protection officer. These are my findings, and this is the result. Kindly take over from here. And then they will do the needed intervention.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Another question says, is there protection for the child protection officer?
There is. One of the protection is the one I discussed. If you did a report, you'll not be criminally liable, even when they find out that the concern disclosed was not real. They couldn't substantiate it. But once it's done in good faith, there's no problem with that.
Thank you, ma'am. I have another question here. If a child needs medical treatment as a result of abuse, who will bear the cost?
Can I come in now?
Yes.
At the Checheyara Foundation, we provide free medical services. And we also know that our partner medical agencies like WARIF and Women at Risk International Foundation, their services are free. Please, so if we have any case, let's not be discouraged. Let's step this down on the survivor and non-offending family members the services are free. Psychosocial services is free, medical treatment. And the ones we refer you to, their evaluation and treatment and evaluation report are tenable before the court of law. Thank you.
I also want to add that Mirabel and Wari provides intervention for cases bordering on child sexual abuse. Now, what we also do is we also, if it's not around that area, we also refer them to we will encourage them to use the primary health center, which is cheaper, depending on the form, depending on the abuse. We encourage them to use the primary health center. And when necessary, we hardly do that. But we also provide support, but we hardly do that. But that's related to child sexual abuse. For other forms of medical assistance, we refer. And we have partners that will provide services at the subsidized rate.
Thank you, ma'am. Another one says, is there room for anonymous reports?
Yes. You see, you want to answer?
Yes, because I know that government agencies and the Chechera Foundation is part of the confidentiality policy. You may choose not to state your name, but just give the relevant details, the benchmarks, the identity of the survivor, the identity of the perpetrator, the residence where it took place, and if you have photos or any other material that can support investigations and prosecutions, you forward it. We have a strict confidentiality policy here. And even like I told you, documentation, we don't do hard copies of records. We even give the survivors code numbers. So you cannot even know their name. Even if you hack into the computer, you cannot know. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have been told that when we see a suspect, we don't have to wait until that child complains before we make report to the designated, and it has to be within 72 hours. And all the offices that we can report to as well have been listed. And we must note that if we fail to report, we may be liable for the damages that a child suffered as a result of a failure to report. Thank you so much for the sessions. I'm sure we've all benefited from it. And when we go back to our schools, it has really changed our mindset towards how we handle all these cases. I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your time. Cheche Yara Foundation, we are really grateful. Thumbs up for you. Thank you. Now I would like to welcome the Director, Child Guidance, Counseling, and Special Education Unit of the Ministry to round up the program. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. We started this program this afternoon with some advice from the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, our mommy, our auntie, Mrs. Abodsede Adelaja. Our commissioner had been going around schools, for tours, and but she too, will have a word for us. So at this time, I don't know if the commissioner will link up right now. Mommy, we are ready for you, ma'am. Wow. Probably our honorable commissioner is in a location where, she is not able to come up right now. But at this time, I just, want to appreciate our honorable commissioner, Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, and our permanent secretary, Mr. Abosede Adelaja. They've really been wonderful in ensuring that this meeting of today, is arranged for the benefit of all of us, educators, teachers, even parents. And it's all encompassing in order that by the time the children comes, back to school, they will be in good hands. Please, each and every one of us, we are in the, we have lives on our hands. We have these children, to be molded up, to be nurtured. And I bet that each and every one of us will not, misuse the opportunity that we have been given. So I'm really advising us to really make good use of the benevolence that the Honorable Commissioner and the Permanent Secretary had made possible to be available for us this afternoon. Because actually they are the ones that brought, up this idea, bringing the Teseyara Foundation on board and ensuring, that, this webinar is taking place this afternoon. And at the same time, I want to appreciate the chairman of the Teaching Service Commission, the person of our mommy, Mrs. Ariyo, for allowing the teachers, to join in. So also the permanent secretary of the Teaching Service Commission, my dear sister, Mrs. Toyin Oluwaseyi, and the SUBEB chairman, our Honorable Alawiye King, together with the acting board secretary, my auntie, Mrs. Bumi Oteju. Within, the thinking of an eye, they've been able to ensure that, all the primary school teachers too were brought on board. And some of them were even, wondering. They've been sending me questions, calling me on phone that they were not able to join, on this webinar. And so they were advised to link up with the, via the, via the Zoom. Those who couldn't join on the Zoom, they were advised even to join, on later on, at least so that they benefit from the recording session. And I cannot say thank you enough to our partners, the Checheyara Foundation. I want to tell you that I'm sitting right now in the comfort of the office, so cool, so refreshing, and they've made everything, available for us. The other time, you use the facility of the Ministry of Education in the person, with the office of our Educational Resource Center. But this afternoon, the facility that we are using belongs totally, to this, our beautiful foundation, the Checheyara. And it is only God Almighty that can really reward them for their intervention at this point in time. I believe that we've all had a wonderful time, and I cannot, leave this appreciation without appreciating my district and SUBEB guidance counselors, who ensure that all the teachers get the notice for this meeting, and they even come on board. And to my teachers and school guidance counselors, the ball has been rolled into our courts. How are we going to bounce it? This is a challenge. I trust in God that we are going to bounce it, very well, to ensure that our nation, Nigeria, will get better, starting from our own state of excellence, Lagos State. Èkó ò ní bàjẹ́ o, àjùmọ̀ṣe gbogbo wa ni, àjùmọ̀ṣe tèmi àti tẹ̀yin ni o. Ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ gbé ìlú yìí lárugẹ. Ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ gbé ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó sókè lágbára Ọlọ́run. Àṣeṣe. I want to appreciate all of you, and I say thank you, thank you, thank you, and God bless you all. The moderator.
we have been able to do. We thank God for today. We thank God for what we have been able to do. My director has already given the vote of thanks, and I believe this training will still continue. This type of training will still continue, and our partnership with Shesheyera continues by the grace of God. Thank you. See you some other time. But no.